chapters and affiliates across the state that grew out of the Bernie Sanders 2016 presidential campaign and is committed to fundamental progressive change in New York. My name is Jeff Michelson. I'm the co-chair of Grassroots Action New York, which is a founding chapter of NYPAN focused in Harlem and the Upper West Side, as well as a co-founder of Hudson Valley Demands New York Health, which is a regional coalition of individuals and groups, including 2 NYPAN chapters, working to pass the New York Health Act, which is also the primary goal of this committee. You'll meet the other members of our steering group, Naomi, Ting, and Steve, over the course of our meeting tonight. But first, I want to give a quick rundown of our agenda. So after Ting explains our community agreements, I'll begin with a brief overview of the New York Health Act, what it is, its legislative history, and some thoughts about why it didn't pass this year yet again, highlighting some of the obstacles we face as well as the progress we've made. Next, Naomi is going to provide the steering group's vision for this committee, its purpose, and its proposed structure. And these ideas are meant to be a starting.
No, we're using the one that was sent to you. It's a separate one.
These ideas are meant to be a starting
not right.
point. Ting, you're so these ideas are meant to be a starting point that'll evolve as we discuss strategies and get to doing the actual work. And in fact, Naomi is going to begin that process tonight by leading a discussion on those strategies and our general approach in the second half of the hour. And then Steve is going to wrap up with some action items that people can work on between now and our next meeting. The idea is to have these on a monthly basis. So with that, Ting, if you wouldn't mind sharing our community agreements, that'd be great.
Yep. Okay, can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff here, but the overall idea of this, of course, as usual, is to make sure that everyone gets heard, that nobody dominates the conversation. So if you find yourself talking a lot, which I know I tend to do sometimes, I'll try and say, okay, I got to step back, let some other people talk. We're going to maintain a strict 2-minute limit on when we have discussion. So please keep that in mind. Don't be upset, but I will say 2 minutes, and that's the end of your time for that particular time. Also consider whether what you're trying to say might have already been said. We want to add to the conversation with everything we say, or it might be that there's a better time later on to do it. So that's it for that.
Great, thanks a lot, Tim. And if I'll add one more thing, which is that we value your time and are going to keep these meetings and this meeting to just 1 hour. If people want to continue the conversation elsewhere, that's awesome. And of course, there's going to be lots of discussion and things to do in between meetings, but we do want to keep things on track for these monthly get-togethers. So I know that a lot of you have been doing this work for as long as I have, and some of you have been doing it for a lot longer. For those of you who might be new, and hopefully there are some of you, just to make sure that we're all up to speed, I'm going to begin tonight with a brief, and I promise this part of it will be brief, overview of the New York Health Act, which is the bill we're trying to get passed. As a lead into that, though, we'd like to take a quick poll to gauge people's history and familiarity with the bill, basically if you've worked on it in the past. And so Ting, if you wouldn't mind throwing that poll up for everyone.
There you go.
Yeah, just indicating whether you've done work on the New York Health Act in the past, if so, if it's a lot or a little, and if not, that's awesome. Welcome to the fight. This is one that we're going to win someday. And maybe once everyone's had a chance to vote, Ting, you can go ahead and interrupt me if you like and throw the results up. Of that.
Okay, so far, nobody's actually voted. Did everybody see the poll?
I voted.
I
voted.
It should pop up automatically.
I
got it. It worked.
Okay, I'm not seeing it on my side. Okay.
It'll be in there somewhere, Ting.
You have to submit or something?
It's running. But last one I tested it, I actually saw the things coming in. I'm not seeing them now. But anyway,
I'm seeing them, Ting. I think I somehow, because
oh, you took it over. All right.
I didn't mean to, but I'm seeing a running total of where we are
Okay.
so far. You want me to click
Well,
the end poll
have
button?
we reached 100% people voted?
Yeah, 40 out of 44 have voted.
Yeah, I think that's enough to give some results.
I think that's a significant
Okay.
sample.
I'm going to end the poll.
Yep.
And there's the results. Everybody got that?
I'm not seeing it, but
Okay.
There they are.
now I am.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. So perfect. It's a mix of people who've been doing this a long time, some people who've done a little bit, and I'm just overjoyed to hear there are people who are new to this struggle. So welcome all of you. And with that, I'm going to go into the bill a bit. So the New York Health Act is a bill before the New York State Legislature that would provide guaranteed comprehensive health care to every resident and full-time worker in the state of New York, regardless of age, income, employment status, or ability to pay, with no premiums, copays, or deductibles. It would cover all medically necessary services, including primary, specialty, and preventative care, mental health and reproductive health, dental, vision, hearing, prescription drugs, and long-term care. There would be no network restrictions, so you can choose the doctor and the hospital you want and get treatment when you need it, not when you can afford it. It's very simple. If you get sick, you go to the hospital, you get treated, and the state of New York pays the bill with no out-of-pocket costs for you. The program would be financed through a combination of funds that New York currently receives from the federal government for programs like Medicare and Medicaid, plus a progressively graduated tax on income from employment and investments. The first $25,000 of anyone's income is entirely exempt from the tax. The first $50,000 of any senior's income is exempt as well. Now, beyond that exemption, the remaining tax brackets are not currently written into the bill, but they will be steeply progressive, with New York's highest earners paying the most. In fact, studies predict that between 90 and 98% of New Yorkers would save money on their healthcare costs while getting much better coverage. Local governments and school systems would save millions every year, and the state would save billions overall, thanks to the elimination of administrative waste, increased efficiency, and the ability to bargain for better prices with pharmaceutical companies. Employers would be required to pay at least 80% of the payroll tax for their employees, with self-employed people like myself responsible for the entire contribution, as we are under the current system. And this progressive, dedicated tax will replace the deeply regressive tax that we currently pay in the form of premiums, copays, and deductibles. So the bill was first introduced in 1992 by my former assemblyman, Dick Godfried, and he's introduced it every subsequent year. In 2016, the movement for universal healthcare exploded, thanks to the Bernie Sanders campaign, but also building on decades of hard work by single-payer advocates. That year, the New York Health Act passed the New York State Assembly for the first time, and it did so in each of the following 3 years by increasing margins. Importantly, however, during that time, it never even made it out of committee in the Senate. The excuse at first was that the IDC, which gave control of the Senate to the Republicans, even when the Democrats had a majority in both houses, wouldn't allow it. So in 2018, a bunch of progressive groups, including NYPAN, worked our butts off to get rid of the IDC and to give the Democrats complete control of state government and their largest majorities since 1910. In 2019, the bill passed the Assembly for the fourth time, but it still didn't make it out of committee in the Senate. The excuse this time was that the bill didn't have a majority of co-sponsors in the Senate yet, and leadership wouldn't allow it to move forward without one. The campaign did reach a milestone that year, however, in that for the first time, there were public hearings across the state where hundreds of New Yorkers and representatives of major organizations showed up to testify in marathon sessions, like 13, 14-hour sessions, about the dysfunction of our current healthcare system and the need to transform it by passing the New York Health Act. Now, then came 2020, and I don't need to remind you what happened then, but I will say that it furnished the Democratic leadership with yet another excuse to not allow a vote, since they couldn't possibly fix our broken healthcare system during the worst public health crisis in 100 years. That year, it didn't even make it to the floor in the Assembly, let alone in the Senate. However, those same progressive groups that came together to defeat the IDC did manage to elect even more Democrats, giving them supermajorities in both houses. Now this year, 2021, our campaign passed another major milestone. The New York Health Act was introduced with majority co-sponsors in both houses. And a lot of people on the call tonight played a major role in making that happen. It was no small feat. It gave the Democrats, in theory, more than the numbers they need and a mandate to finally pass this bill. And I want to take just a minute to reflect on that mandate. In 2018 and 2020, the vast majority of Democratic candidates and incumbents ran on the New York Health Act. And they won in part because single-payer healthcare is wildly popular. Somewhere around 2/3 of the country supports it. Numbers that are no doubt significantly higher in a relatively progressive state like New York. 22 legislative bodies have resolutions in support of the New York Health Act, including NYC, and in fact, every major city in New York, as well as villages, towns, and counties across the state. More than 500 businesses have endorsed the bill, as well as major unions, grassroots organizations, faith-based groups, and thousands of ordinary New Yorkers who sacrificed their time to make phone calls, send postcards, record their personal stories, hold public forums and rallies, and lobby their legislators, both in their districts and in Albany, screaming at the top of their lungs that they want healthcare and they want it now. So when you hear from your legislators or the Democratic leadership, and I guarantee you will hear this, that they're not hearing enough from their constituents about this bill, I have a one-word response for you: bullshit. Tell them we elected you to get this done, and it is time for you to do it. Okay, so to take a step back, unfortunately, we all know how this story played out this year. The absurdly short 2021 legislative session is already over. And despite the overwhelming mandate that I just described, the bill didn't make it to the floor for a vote in either chamber. In the Senate, it didn't even make it out of the Healthcare Committee. The lead sponsor of the Senate, Gustavo Rivera, did put it on the agenda twice, but Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins removed it twice. It passed out of the Health Committee in the Assembly, but Speaker Hastie made sure it didn't make it any further. In the Senate, the Democratic caucus did conduct what's called a conference, where members get together to discuss a bill in depth and in private, which is apparently often a step in the direction of eventually passing a bill. But I'm sure I speak for some of the activists on here, not to mention thousands of New Yorkers who die or go bankrupt every year due to lack of coverage and the billions that we waste every year on the corrupt, racist system that benefits no one but big money interests, that this is pretty weak tea and a huge disappointment. So why did this happen? And how do we prevent it from happening again? Well, we're not going to answer that question tonight. That's part of the purpose of this committee. But before I finish, I am going to offer a few observations from the perspective of one activist about what happened and what we're up against. So however strong our numbers look on the surface, and however much popular support this bill has, we always have to keep in mind that there are powerful special interests with deep pockets who will do everything in their power to keep this bill from seeing the light of day. At the top of that pyramid are major players like the health insurance and pharmaceutical industry, who have almost never lost a legislative battle in this country, and who use front groups like the so-called realities of single payer, the business councils they dominate, and think tanks like the Empire Center to spread lies and sow fear. Not to mention the immense influence they have over individual politicians and the whole legislative process. So one level down, but still mostly working behind the scenes, is our good friend, Governor Cuomo. I'm sure I don't need to tell this group how far Cuomo will go to keep any legislation that challenges corporate power from reaching his desk. And he remains one of our biggest obstacles. Weakened that he is, though he remains maybe our biggest obstacle to passing the New York Health Act. At this point, however, our most immediate obstacle, and the one that's more on the surface, is the leadership of the state legislature. And that's Carl Hastie and Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who have proven extremely adept at blocking progress on this bill, in fact, on any major legislation that's progressive, although it does get harder for them to do so every year. As I mentioned earlier, their excuses change over time, but it's equally clear that they will go all out to protect capital, even while sacrificing lives and billions in savings to do so. One of the ways they justify this is by pointing to members of their caucus in more conservative districts, as if people in those areas don't need healthcare too, and as if protecting their supermajority were an end unto itself, not a means to passing major life-saving legislation. It is true that even many of the current co-sponsors of the bill, and some of them are in those conservative districts, do little or nothing to get this bill passed. And some are even working behind the scenes against the bill. But I wouldn't say it's only in those conservative districts, and it might be part of this task, one task of this committee, to figure out who our allies are, who the people who our opponents in the legislature are, and figure out how to act toward them accordingly. Now, lately, both the leadership and individual legislators have used the opposition that exists from different quarters, but principally this time around from certain public sector unions as yet another excuse and as a shield to protect the status quo. Now, exactly why the leadership of these unions oppose the bill is a complicated question that may be another thing for this committee to explore. But it's important to remember that the bill does already have broad support from a lot of labor unions, and that the leadership of the unions that do oppose it, in many cases, have major conflicts of interest, and that they do not necessarily represent the views or the interests of their own members, let alone of the rest of society. The status quo they're protecting is one that gives them an increasingly raw deal. And we're seeing that fiasco play out right now with the retirees of public sector unions who just had their Medicare ripped away from them in a backroom deal by the leadership of their unions to privatize their health benefits. Now, there's a lot more to this story, and we're going to have time to explore it all in more detail as we develop a strategy going forward. And that's just one activist perspective. But I hope that at least lays down some groundwork and conveys that we have our work cut out for us in this committee and in the larger campaign to pass the New York Health Act and force these legislators to listen to the overwhelming voices of this state who want healthcare. They want it guaranteed, they want it free and simple, and they want it now. And that's, I think, our task as a committee here. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Naomi, who's going to give you a broader vision of what we had in mind for this.
Thank you, Jeff. That was such a fantastic overview. Kind of like how we got to where we are right now. And I guess as a group, what we're thinking about, I think that a lot of people have talked about feeling just kind of like we didn't get a lot of direction towards the end of the last legislative session. Where do we apply pressure? How do we make sure that we bring this to a vote? How do we pressure the leadership whose job it is to to decide what gets to come to a vote. And I think that, what we're trying to do in this committee basically is to move from feeling like it's been leader-less to making it leader-full, a leader-full movement. So NYPAN statewide, if we are all just implanted all over the state, we can come together and strategize about building an army everywhere, in every locale all over the state. So we have, so basically we don't want to have kind of just debate. We don't want it to be a debate society. We want to do kind of something different, not like forums where we learn about the bill, although that's really useful. We're trying to make this specifically a different kind of space. We're trying to do something different with this space. And it's really about action. And especially like strategizing action across all of our local communities. So basically we see four areas of focus that each of us is going to talk about a little bit more. Whenever we come together as a bigger group, we'll strategize across the four of them because they all interact with each other in important ways. So it's research, electoral strategies, people to people, just like getting the information out, and then organizing around unions. So each of these things is going to be really useful to one another. All of the research that they can provide us around like how much different locales can save and what legislators are interested in what is going to inform, how do we turn people out? What kind of messages are we putting out on flyers, on tables? What are the important places for us to, what are the hotspots for us to go to? When and why should people be calling particular legislators at a given time? All of that comes out of research, but it's powered by the kind of getting people out there area of work. And anyway, so each of these areas of work are going to happen in committees, kind of in working groups that will meet in between our larger once a month kind of committee-wide, NYPAN single payer committee-wide group meetings. And what our larger group meetings are about is basically, so if we think about it, meeting once a month from now until the next legislative session it's actually, there's not that many meetings left. There's not that many months left. So, if for the next few months, it's tabling, it's building coalitions, trying to strategize around unions, the first few months of before they start voting of next year is around big media pushes and starting to build these demonstrations. And eventually, I think it's with an eye towards knowing that we're going to need heavy pressure and we're going to need to have built the numbers by next spring, which kind of has to happen now in order to actually bring something to a vote. And so anyway, whenever we come together in our big group meetings, for the next eight meetings over 8 months or so, it's about strategizing around this calendar. And it's also, we want to just hear from people who have led really successful campaigns, from Ione, from Harvey Epstein, who's in NYPAN and also in the Assembly. So these are the kinds of people that we're going to reach out to. Also somebody from the Economic Security Project, people who lobby on behalf of progressive policy in other states, and who have had success with that, just because I think that we have a lot to learn. Okay, so I think, sorry, Jeff was very prepared and it was great. But okay, so basically we could just go into talking about what each of our working groups is. That's the overview. I'm for now going to work on the people to people working group. And it's basically just, the people power. It's one arm out of the four that's going to be our tool. We have kind of these 4 working groups in our toolbox as a strategizing collective. And one of them is going to be people power. And that one's important, obviously, because we're going to we need to turn out tens of thousands of people in the spring around the state. So this is coming up with flyers, tabling, devising those locations for where to table, trying to come up with, I think as a working group, we'll discuss it, but coming up with what are the important places, and, do we go to the same spot every Saturday for a while, in different towns, and then building up our connections in all of these areas so that we can have these tables manned and have schedules for like making sure that we can have, you know, a good number of people at each of these farmers markets, at the, whether it's the metro station, whatever it is that we find is the best place to be doing this at. So that's the people to people working group. And Jeff, do you want to talk about the labor arm?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Naomi, you unprepared are still awesome. So don't worry about it all. Thanks for that great rundown of our sort of overall, the idea that we have for the committee in general. So with these working groups, as Naomi just said, the idea is to, you know, have subgroups working on specific issues in between meetings and throughout the next year. And as I outlined in my, rundown debrief and rundown of some of our obstacles, you know, the opposition that does exist from some very powerful public sector unions mostly has played a big role in why this bill hasn't passed up until now. And we are proposing a working group to dig into why that's the case and how that can change. And, you know, that's, you know, there are lots of different ways to approach that question. It's not just a matter of confrontation or non-confrontation. It might be some combination of both. And it's also going to be, you know, really building on the support that this bill already has within unions. But, you know, it's really important for this group to have a working group that is focused on that question. And I'll tell you right now, because there are lots of other groups in the state working on the same question, DSA, Campaign for New York Health, of course, and others, that we will have partners in answering those questions and in developing a coordinated strategy. And so that's the idea behind the working group. I'll say one more thing in general about the working groups, and I'll definitely say this is the case with the labor one. You know, the four of us who, you know, put together this meeting are going to start to kick those off. And, you know, who knows, maybe some of us will continue to lead those groups. But, you know, in my case, I would love it if there's someone or more than one person who would step up to take over that work. You know, ideally somebody with deeper roots in labor, because I have some, but there are people on this call tonight who have much deeper ties and histories with labor. And so, you know, we really love in general with this committee and with these working groups for people to work up to leadership positions and to take on roles within those, and taking on a working group would be one way to do that. So with that, why don't I pass it to Steve? Steve, are you there?
Yeah, hello. So I'm going to be heading up the research group to start with. And basically the role of the research group is going to be to prepare our people-to-people groups, our labor groups, with whatever information they need that they think will help them. Things like the savings, you know, for Medicaid. The last time that was done was by Darius Shahanfar in 2015. Each county's contribution to Medicaid has changed since then, and we want to try to look into and getting that up to date so we know how much the counties will save now in 2021. Things like what unions support it, what unions don't, so we know where to spend our energy. And it's a lot of work, and I'll need a lot of help doing that. So hopefully, you know, y'all help me dig into that. Okay, and then next up is
me, I think. Yes. Okay. We've also been doing this kind of as if there was no other opportunities, but I'm pretty sure we welcome if people have ideas for other working groups, bring them up by all means. These are just four we thought of and to kick the thing off. But and by the way, we're going to do a poll as soon as we're done describing these things so people can sign up, excuse me, and let us know what you want to work on, so we can get back to you with plans for how to do that. So electoral is my thing, and the motorcycles outside or something else. Electoral is where the rubber hits the road or the whatever hits the fan or something. And clearly we've not been doing a very good job of it. I mean, just going and begging these people doesn't really work. So in my view, we need to really dig into, and this is part of the research also, finding what the real levers are that'll move these people. Where's their money come from? Who are their contacts? And so forth. We need to develop a smarter way of endorsing with probably conditional endorsements. We have a wonderful opportunity coming up in 2022 because the legislative session finishes before the primary, just before it. And so I think we want to figure out how we can hold these people accountable if they don't pass the bill. We also, there's a lot of things we may want to do, but one final thing is I think we want to look around with other groups and try and prepare for a Cuomo challenger that a lot of progressive, hopefully all progressive groups can back to have a fighting chance of actually winning. That's it for that. So shall we ready to do the poll? Or does anybody want to say anything?
Let's do it.
Alrighty, so here we have another poll for you. If I can drive this thing correctly. Here's number one. Oh, wait a minute, Emily, you may have to do this. I'm only seeing poll number one.
All right, I'm gonna click the share
Click
results button.
Click the polling thing.
Okay. Stop sharing.
Well, you're still seeing number one?
Yeah, I'm still seeing.
Okay,
number one.
stop. So stop sharing number one.
Okay. How do I?
Then go down to polling on the bottom, and you should, when you click that, you should see number two.
Relaunch, download, poll closed.
Where's number two?
Can
Oh,
I
right,
just
there's
make,
got it. I found the number two. Launch poll. Doo-doo.
great.
Everybody see that?
People are voting.
Great, because I don't see it now.
And I don't get to vote, I guess, because I'm the one giving the poll. Huh?
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't see it. How do you see it?
It jumps up on your screen.
Nothing jumped up on my screen.
Should be right inside the black Zoom window.
You're inside the black Zoom window.
You might have to get out of like gallery view or out of,
I'm not in anything.
if you hit the
I'm
escape
just
button.
on the Zoom.
If you hit your escape button on your keyboard, sometimes that sort of like resets things.
Did you see the first one, Barbara?
Yeah, I didn't see the first one. I may have, because I'm not where the phone is, but I came back and then I said that I had worked before for the New York Health Act, and I can't see this one now. I'm sorry. Where do you go in?
Okay.
Barbara, maybe in your case, you could just email us about it.
Or put it in the chat, one or the other.
Or put it in the chat, yeah.
Okay.
And
So the four
Put
groups
it
are
in the chat,
labor.
I can see it.
Now you see it?
So if I can make a suggestion while we're figuring that out, maybe we can do that over chat. And Naomi, if you are able to lead the discussion, open discussion that we have tonight about the goals and strategies of this committee, that would be great.
Okay, great. I think we can go ahead and get started with that and just interrupt whenever we reach a critical mass of votes. Well, let's just start with, does anyone have clarification questions about what the groups would do, the four groups?
May I ask a question about the poll?
Yes.
I know that the way Zoom is set up, co-hosts can go back in and look at who voted what way. So for example, a teacher could be able to tell which kid got the question wrong. Is there somebody who is going to collate all of these answers?
Yes, we are, of course. We're going to use the poll to get back and group people together. So everybody who signed up for labor will get an email to get together, people and so forth.
Okay.
You'll get that by tomorrow morning.
I hope you get that, because I have never done this before, even though
Yeah, no, I know how to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
We
Don't let
tested
me
it.
delete it.
Ping, I just wanted to bring up the fact that, my email has changed, and I don't know if you have my new email address, because I'd like to be able to receive what you're going to
Well,
be
did you,
sending.
when you signed up for this thing, you put your new email? We'll use the one you used to sign up for this meeting.
Okay. Yeah,
Very good.
all right.
Okay, so there was a lot of, or there was some kind of conversations in the chat around like what people to people means. Where does media fit into that as well? So we can start there. I think that the way that I was thinking about it for now, and especially depending on how many people we have and how that kind of determines how specialized each group can get. But I think that the people to people is about like, we'll get together and just figure out like what large groups do we have at our disposal that we can just start showing up to, speaking to leaders of community, faith-based groups, the Little League, whoever it is that we have in our circles that we can get in front of and tell about this so that we can get some people signing up, phone numbers and email addresses so that we can turn them out when needed. I think that to me is like the strategy for a people to people. And I think that part of that is also media. I have found that social media hasn't been as fruitful for me. Just, I don't know who they are, where they are, and it tends not to be as like intensive engagement, but maybe I don't know how to do it that well or something. But, other forms of media, like Howard had brought up ethnic like newspapers and stuff, I'm guessing. And I don't know, the West Side Spirit or whatever it is, just newspapers. I think that that's kind of part of people to people too. It's just about getting the message out. So if anybody has, maybe we can just kind of go like one by one and spend a couple of minutes on each area of work or each working group. But if anybody has like ideas for strategizing around how to organize people power, feel free.
I think one thing, Naomi, that we didn't do last time around very successfully, although the cards did it, is we need to get the names and email addresses of these people so we can mobilize them. We talked to an awful lot of people over the last few years that we don't know who they are. And that's lost work, basically. So I would like to see a strategy that either incorporates the use of Reach or some other, or even just the paper cards or sign-up sheets or whatever. So we capture these names.
Yeah, there are also phone numbers. It is the easiest way to get in touch with people. You can just call them. Catherine?
I presume that it's under the auspices of this group. I think that we should be talking to groups of people whom we are not usually talking to. And I'm going to give you a great example. Steve Caccini and somebody who's on the core committee of PEER, Cheryl Cashin, who's a public health expert, spoke to our local Democratic club here in Southampton. They're quite resistant to the New York Health Act. And they made converts there. And they got people excited about it. So is that going to be part of the outreach of your group? And for instance, I've been talking to local police officers, believe it or not, in our town who are actually interested in universal health care. So I just think that should be part of your outreach, if I'm correct that this is.
Yeah, I think that we have actually just started really within, I would say, for me, since this most recent legislative session, reaching out to the Democratic clubs like in the west side of Manhattan. I think that's as far as we've gotten so far. And we have found some good allies there. In terms of reaching out to people who, I think that if our strategy is to turn people out, and we know that this is a very popular, like single payer is really popular. And, like when I think about our day in Albany, there was like several hundred people there, and that was great. But I'm just like, there should be thousands of people in Albany who will benefit from this, who could come out. I think that it's like the strongest like goal is finding the people who already want this. There's so many of them who would be really passionately involved and supportive, and who would be willing to turn out for single payer healthcare, but really just don't know who we are. And I think that there's like, those are the low hanging fruit, and there's literally millions of them. And so I think that it's like, maybe we would emphasize trying to find those groups over trying to debate, say, people who we know to be kind of moderate. But I think that, yeah, like the Democratic clubs, they're Democrats, and they're already, politically organizing and politically active. So I think that's a really good idea. Earl and then Javier,
I think,
and then we'll move on.
Hi, I think the point Naomi made about Albany was really good because, you know, to go from buses from New York City and from Buffalo and Rochester to Albany is like a full day event and everything like that. And it's hard to get the numbers. But if we focused on organizing Albany folks so that they could come on their lunch hour, then we would have a lot of people out there, you know, when that time comes in January and stuff. But we need to start that organizing now, and there's groups up there that will help us. And some of us might be willing to travel up there and do whatever's necessary, or we could phone bank in.
Javier?
And then George.
Yeah, I guess I just want to bring up the an observation that I have, which is that I think a lot of the strategy has to be based on expectations. I would honestly like to know what expectations there are, not just for us in the next few months, but in the next legislative session. And I am not going to make any allusions to the idea that I believe that it will be passed, the bill will be passed next year. I think we need to think long-term, a 5, 10, maybe even 20-year plan, and build strategies based on that time frame. Because if we simply work from session to session, we're really simply reinventing the wheel time after time after time. I think.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I think that's a good idea. So did you have any ideas about how you would, how that looks different? Are there tactics that you have in mind?
Yeah, yes. One of the things is we should talk about fundraising. I honestly don't know how much the Campaign for New York Health has right now, but it would be nice if we could work on setting goals for how many people we want to bring into it to pay dues every month or every year. In terms of getting the media, we need to have someone who's on it every single year in terms of reaching out to the news organizations, TV, radio, print. You know, I think that the strategy then will fall into place, but I think it's important to know what is the expectation going forward for this, because it just feels like if it goes from session to session and we don't pass it, then what exactly are we doing that's different from the year after that? I think that that's an important distinction.
Yeah, I think that's, sorry to cut you off. We don't have very much more time, but I think that's a good thing for us to continue to keep in mind as we're strategizing. Okay, George and Angela.
In terms of outreach, it seems like we spend a lot of time preaching to the choir. And I would say Upper West Side political clubs, as much as I love them, you know, they already agree with us. We have to get a mass movement, and what Jeff pointed out with the city retirees now on the march against the privatization of their healthcare is a beginning of that. But we have to, you know, go to the groups that we usually don't go to, churches, you know, people of color clubs, communities, you know, upper Manhattan, all these groups. And it has to be parallel. Yeah, it has to be parallel with the campaign to defeat Cuomo, because it's the same groups of people who will do both. And you know,
yeah, I think that's a great idea to coordinate.
We can't succeed. And the one other thing, if I can just finish, is that we can't do it alone, just as our group. And I think Jeff pointed that out. We have to act as a coalition with other groups, a lot of other groups, to win this struggle, and we will win it.
Yeah, and if, you know, if you want to bring in, like, I think as a working group member, you know, different groups that you're associated with, I think it's a great idea to all work with people who are going to be primarying all of the different state legislature seats. Even if we're not endorsing them necessarily, they're going to be covering the ground. And so so we can work together. All right, Angela and Roger.
Thank you for the opportunity. So what struck me was that we don't have a lot of time, that there will likely be a handful of opportunities to lobby in Albany in the spring, and we would want to start setting that calendar now, and work towards, and thinking of just the people to people, work towards in a very decentralized way, where each of us geographically focus on actually building our own mini events to bring people. There are a lot of people that support this, as we know, and developing those relationships using, of course, leaders who already have masses of people with them, like church leaders, for example. And then, but always all of us knowing that we're building towards this one big event. I think, George Albro mentioned, mass movement, and that's how we have to think. We need to really overwhelm Albany in the spring, whether it be 1 week, 1 day, or, one day ideally is it, like where it just becomes historic. And I think that we can do that. And I think that with regard to like reach, someone mentioned reach, absolutely. There has to be investment in a system that we have everyone's name, email, phone number, because text banking, I think, will be key and important. And essentially that's what I wanted to share. So, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what we can achieve. I've been blessed to see myself be part of movements where we've been able to get things happen that no one thought we were going to be able to do. So I'm really excited to be part of this with all of you.
Yeah, and I love that vision. I think that's like a really strong vision, like just building, mini events that are also at the same time overwhelming. Okay, so let's move on to the next, and whoever's hand is raised, can also go next. But I just want to bring the other working groups into the conversation so we can talk about. We can go next to electoral strategies and research. I think they kind of go hand in hand, and then we can finish up by talking about labor. So research, which is how much municipalities are saving, and power mapping electeds and who they're getting their money from and everything. And then also just like lobbying and getting in touch with our elected representatives. So we go Roger and then Kim.
Roger, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna read this real quick that I wrote. If we're gonna be serious about pushing lawmakers to pass the New York Health Act, then we have to seriously consider finding primary challenges to leadership in both the Senate and the Assembly. The way I see it, anything short of zeroing in on them to put all our focus on primarying them is a waste of time. Senate Stuart Cousins District 35 is 58% registered Democrat, 15% registered Republican. Generis, his District 12 is 65% registered Democrat, 9% registered Republican. Heastie has 57,333 registered Democrat and only a little over 2,000 registered Republicans. We have to back a grassroots candidate in all three districts to hit them and hit them hard, relentlessly on one main issue: the fact that they did not bring the New York Health Care Act to a floor vote, despite having enough co-sponsors in both chambers of the state legislature to pass it. This is a layup. The easiest, most effective verbal weaponry a primary challenger can say to Stuart Cousins, Generis, Heastie is every time the incumbents tell their constituents of all the good legislation they passed, the challenger can simply say, yeah, that's nice, but you still didn't give us health care. You found time to make baseball the official sport of New York State, but you didn't give us health care. You found time to expand cricket in New York State, but you didn't bring up the New York Health Care Act up for a vote. Every time they start powering off all this good legislation they passed, the comeback the primary challenger can say is, yeah, we thank you for that. That was great, but you didn't give us health care, and I will. Even the Stu Cousins challenger can say, she's not even a co-sponsor of the act, so she doesn't want you to have health care at all. Since the primary election day comes after the end of the legislative session.
2 minutes, please.
Oh, what's that?
That's 2 minutes.
Oh man. All right.
Can you quickly wrap up?
Oh, okay. No, I was just
Do
saying,
you have any candidates in mind? I'm curious.
I'm saying we got to find somebody. I don't even
We got to
know
find
those
them. Yeah.
districts.
Yes,
Mhm.
totally
what I mean?
agree. So
But-
join the electoral
Yeah.
group.
Okay. But I
Yeah.
was just saying, just like how Cynthia Nixon scared Cuomo into ending the IDC, you don't have to win in order to win. So you just have to scare
Mhm.
them into taking action, because they'll be like, okay, now it's my neck that's on the line. All you guys, all you co-sponsors, that, yeah. So
We might need you to run, you know? We might need you to run. Okay, Kim, I think that's a great point. And I really want like there to be I feel like there probably is a really good hasty calendar out there. And Andrea Stewart Cousins too. In fact, you know who I think is that guy, Amdem Georgis, who was running for Congress against Jamal Bowman early on. Anyway, okay, let's go to Kim.
So I know Roger personally, and I am all for him running. Unfortunately, I know that he lives in Kevin Thomas's district. So either we got to get him to move or keep our fingers crossed for redistricting. So thank you, Roger. That was very passionate. And thank you to all of the organizers on the call. I learned a few things about the bill. What struck me was that it's been introduced since 1992. And that's what led to my question in the chat regarding media, messaging, so on and so forth. I think that's an opportunity, even, visually, whether it's for fundraisers or photo ops outside Democratic senators, district offices. Right now, Gen Z is all about all things 90s. And I think a lot of them, they'd be all for everyone having health care, but they may not necessarily be so politically involved. And I think running with the 90s theme might be an avenue to garner some excitement,
I love it. Yeah, we can have like posters with, Alicia Silverstone on them. Like,
or
yeah.
like whatever, a fundraising costume party, and then we take photo ops outside the district office to kind of shame them, like you haven't moved on this issue.
Yeah, I love it. Okay,
another,
so join the people to people.
And then another thing, those who know me personally on the call know that my family was impacted by gun violence. And to me, and any opportunity I get to tell one of the Long Island Six or, anyone in the assembly, kind of shame them that
2 minutes, please. 2 minutes.
Sure. A lot of Democrats, purport to be purport to support victims of gun violence and family members, and to be all for doing anything to reduce gun violence. But the one thing they won't do is pass the New York Health Act. And I think a lot of organizations are clearly organizing around the issue of gun violence prevention. And I think that would be another fit kind of to,
I think that's a great idea. That's actually it's a growing constituency, and it's like a coalition member that we maybe haven't explored as much as we could. So thank you.
Yeah,
for
and
that,
there's the gun violence is clearly a public health issue, whether it's like domestic violence, suicide, so on and so forth. So thank you for listening.
But these are the kind of ideas we hope everybody will talk about in the working groups, not necessarily in the main committee meeting.
It's great.
Yeah, we kind of have to move on. Yeah, but take it away.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we do have to move on. And Steve, since we promised to get you out here at 9, Steve, could you send them out with their action items for this hour? And thank you, by the way, everyone, for joining.
basically, as someone who spent most of their school career not doing homework, I'm assigning homework. There are some incredibly lofty ideas here, and they are amazing, and we can get them done. But one of these ideas starts with the simple steps. I want everybody to try to reach out to 5 people they know who support the New York Health Act, who haven't been involved, who've kind of dropped off. Get them back in the game, okay? And all of a sudden, we've got the beginnings of a really big movement. So maybe within 10 days, reach out to 5 people. I reached out to 15 people, and I think 6 of them are here on this meeting tonight. And then the other part of it is join a working group, show up at the meeting when you get the email, and let's put this together. It is the only way this is going to happen. Building this from the ground up is how it's going to happen. Simple steps, basic steps, build it, grow it, and eventually, hopefully, way faster than Javier thinks we can do this, we'll pass this.
Let's hope.
Right.
From your lips, Stephen, from your lips.
So in terms of next steps, tomorrow you will get an email from us, each working group with all the people in that working group, so you can get together. We're expecting you'll have a meeting within the next 10 days or so to kick off what your work is going to be. We'll expect to report on the next meeting of this committee, which will be it's going to be at irregular time due to various things. It's going to be on September, sorry. Oh, wait, I thought we changed it. Sorry, it's going to be on August.
I think we had August 2nd. That's a Monday.
But that's the first Monday. We can't do it on the first Monday.
So can I?
6:30.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm
take
sorry.
a moment and answer Angela's question. What is the ask of our 5 people? Come to one of the working group meetings. Pick one of the working group meetings, get them there. And Angela, I love your fire. Thank you.
Me too.
I think also just get their name and their contact information.
Yeah.
So that and tell them if they can't join the meetings, can we contact you when we need you to be in action?
Yep.
Great.
Not everybody can attend meetings, but they can do things.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Naomi.
So the next meeting will be 6:30 on August 2nd, Monday the 2nd. Thereafter, it'll be on the second Monday.
Right. And you'll all get a follow-up email with this information.
Yeah, you get it tomorrow morning.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. This was a great meeting, really productive, great start, I think, to this committee. Really appreciate your time, and to be continued. The work is just beginning. I think we have our work cut out for us, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Can I make a homework suggestion that when we reach out to our 5 people, confirm where they, whose district they're in for Senate and Assembly?
I concur.
Just so that when we do turn people out.
Right. One of the things we want to do is organize everybody on this committee and all the chapters of NYPAN to know which districts they cover, so we can find out where the gaps are.
Yeah.
That'll be something we do also going forward.
Or will we be putting them into a Google group when we get their contact information?
Well, we'll be putting them in Action Network. There is already a Google group that people can join for this whole committee, but I'm thinking that each working group may want to do their own thing internally, because those are going to be where the work really happens. This committee is simply a way of reporting back.
So I just think if people are not attending meetings, but they're going to show up for a rally or a call or tech, whatever they're going to do when we give them assignments, what kind of email should they be looking for? What would it say?
Presumably we'll send one from NYPAN, or there'll be one from the campaign, or both.
Okay. We need to be able to tell them that, what to look for.
Right. We'll have to work out a lot of this mechanics. We didn't get that far in our thinking, but it's a good thing to think about.
Yeah, we actually wanted to get all of you involved as quickly as we could. You know, so there's a lot of details to work out.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add, it would be really good if in future we get everyone to delineate what kind of skills they have, computer literacy, because being able to make listservs, being able to make a website, I think all those skills are important that we know, we can plug people in going forward.
Yep.
Ting, do we have any chapters in Stewart Cousins District? Do you know?
I'd have to look.
Yes, Yonkers Pan.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
the
we
new one,
do.
yes.
Yep.
We could reach out to some people there who might want to primary Stu Cousins.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's come to the electoral working group. We're gonna do it.
Yes.
Yeah. I already checked yes when you had
All right,
it.
cool. I feel the fire.
Javier and David Carlson, you two guys are in my neck of the woods. We should put our heads together.
All right, but I don't want to get a concussion.
No, we won't bang too hard.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. This gives me a lot of good energy to go forward. And look forward to seeing you next month and probably in between.
Thanks, everybody.
This was great. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Hey, Jeff.
Oh, Emily, hold on so that we can get all the information.
Yeah. We're gonna do a debrief for the
I have
organizers.
a question for Jeff. Shall I go?
He
Jeff,
signed off,
was-
Terry.
He signed off?
Yep.
Oh, I'll email him. Never mind.
So we can sign off. Should we be signing off, Ting?
Hey, Nana. Good to see you. Yeah, well.
Oh, hey.
We're basically done. Thank you very much
you
for
were
all
there.
coming.
Yep.
Hey, Steven, can I contact you later tomorrow?
Yes, of course you can.
Awesome.
You're
All right.
all my favorite people in the whole world. Good night, everybody.
Love you too,
Good night,
Karen.
Carrie. Good night,
Yeah,
Emily.
thanks.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thing I saw the email and I figured it would be a great idea to just learn more since you've shared so much about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, John O'Malley's still on. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to.
He probably stepped away.
Hey, thanks.
Probably.
Thanks. Good job.
Oh.
Hey, thanks, John. We'll
All right.
need you later.
I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we lost Stephen and Jeff. So Naomi, maybe we should try and regroup tomorrow.
Yeah, let's just make sure we get all of the everybody's names from that poll. We need to get them out of that.
Yeah, no,
poll.
I'll download that stuff right now. As soon as I can't do it while we're on, but as soon as I get off.
I downloaded it
because it's going to be on.
Okay,
good.
Forgot Naomi. Hold on.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we didn't lose it because that was.
I know, I was afraid we were gonna lose it because I didn't know why I was in charge of it at all.
Oh, Jeff's just coming back on. Well, I think I can do it in the back end, Emily.
Okay.
But I can't do that until I exit from this.
Okay.
Okay.
I tell you,
About
let me.
that for a minute, those things can drag on. Those last minute conversations can drag on for like an hour.
Yeah, and usually that's a good thing. Maybe we should build that into future meetings.
Yeah, like a discussion room for people.
Like, yeah, because people like, yeah.
Sure. Like, but I think we should make a point to officially end the meeting right
Yes.
on, and then say if people want to stay and talk, they're welcome to. Otherwise, it just continues forever, and people feel obligated to stay.
Yep. So I made a bunch of notes on the planning document. I'm not sure I got everything though. So I also saved the chat. So I'm going to go through that and see if there's anything there that needs to be taken out or questions or comments or something. Or should I
And
share
so
that with
basically,
everyone?
we're going to get. Oh, sorry.
Should I share the chat with everyone? You all want to see it? I mean, I can do that too.
I took some notes from the chat.
I
But yeah,
watch
I mean,
much-
it doesn't.
I didn't watch much of it, so if you want to send us the file, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
okay. It's not a very big file. I'll send you that as soon as we're off. Naomi, you were going to say?
Well, just in terms of what we need to do next, basically, we're going to get the list of who selected each committee and
Right.
it'll have their email addresses in it. And then we just need to send like
it has their sign up information. So my plan was to send each group an email with all the people in that group so they know who they are, with some suggestions for what they can do. And that I thought we might talk about the 5 of us here. Or I guess 4.
What if people signed up for
maybe just to send a Google group?
They'll get multiples. One for each group they're in.
We have dates planned, or are they separate times that the working groups meet?
Well, we had thought previously they should set their own times because that's not, you know, we can't really, you know, not our thing. But I think we do want to, in terms of holding people responsible and so forth, we want to say, here's what we think you should do. And maybe each email should be different depending on the group. Maybe reprising some of the things we said tonight, for instance, to help them get going. Maybe laying out a possible way of moving forward. I don't know. What do you think?
I was thinking we should add into the email a link to a doodle poll so that once we all show up at a working group meeting, we can discuss like, okay, who's going to be in charge of setting up meetings and whatever.
Once I have the list for the labor committee, I'll definitely start with a doodle poll to figure out what the best time is for everybody to meet. Is that what you mean, or yeah?
So you think the doodle should come from us, right?
Well, yeah, each of us with our specific working group, right?
Oh, so okay, so maybe I shouldn't send the email. Then what I should do is simply send each of you your lists, and you'll take care of it.
That's what I was thinking. You know, so that, you know, for the moment anyway, we're the heads of these working groups, and if you want to continue to be so, great. I'm probably going to try to scout somebody pretty quickly to take over.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
So those emails though need to say what exactly.
Hey, you signed up for the, you know, X working group, and we'd like to get started with our first meeting. So I'm attaching a doodle poll to see when everybody can get together. I don't think it needs to be too complicated.
Should there be any kind of goals in that email other than getting together?
I feel like with mine, maybe it'll depend on mine. That's going to be one of the things we figure out. Like, you know, we've sort of discussed at this point the broader issues involved, and we can get more into those in the working group. But I think it's up to the working group to decide what it wants to do, like what aspect of that broad category they want to dig into.
Yeah.
In my own case, I mean, I think each of us should feel free to organize their working group the way they think is best. I think that's what I'll do.
So I didn't see all the chat, but did anybody suggest another working group?
No, but I'm not sure we made it super clear that that's what we wanted people to do.
I did say, no, well, I know we wanted them to do it, but I tried to open the door to them doing that. But it sounded like people were simply sitting there listening, and that's okay too, but.
I mean, some people, it was kind of things like media and fundraising, but I think that both of those can go under people to people, and then
fundraising is great.
Maybe they separate at some point into a media group.
I hope I didn't step on your toes by raising that issue of collecting data, Naomi. But I was thinking about that was really a serious failing of my own group, at least over the past few years. And we did some of that. We did it with the cards back in, I don't know, a long time ago. And that was very helpful because we have still, actually, I have to resurrect that. We have names of probably thousands of people who signed cards. And that's gold.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether reach is the right way of doing it, but some way that it can be rapidly done in the street would be good.
I wonder if there's an app.
Well, reach is an app, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe I haven't. Oh, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that's because, like, I used to do that with the postcards too, and that's just a whole other bundle of work for somebody.
Well, that's the problem with the postcard. That's why I was trying to do it electronically. That you just hand somebody your phone and say, type in your first name. Is that you? Click. Yeah. Okay. Great. Got it.
Yeah. Exactly. It'd be great if we could coordinate an app on that.
And yeah, but if we do, So people sometimes are more comfortable just writing their names down. And if there, maybe we can find volunteers willing to type in names after events.
We probably can, but one of the problems we found with that is you sit there and you can't read the email, you know, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And that happens a fair amount of the time. Or you think you got it right and it bounces anyway. And so I don't know. We need to think about that. That's all.
Yeah, that's a
One
tricky
thing to
one.
think about. But building up that database is really important. And I'm not sure where we house it exactly. Action Network is available, of course, but
There was also
Danny has something that we do. MailChimp?
yeah, well, Action Network is like MailChimp on steroids, but and MailChimp has some limitations. But yeah, anything like that. But as long as it's part of NYPAN, that's fine.
somebody had suggested a fundraising group.
Fundraising, that was a really good idea. We do need to think about fundraising, absolutely. And NYPAN's been getting a little better at that, but not where we need to be.
I noticed the Campaign for New York Health has been working on that more lately too.
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to get monthly donors, which is a great idea. NYPAN now, if I remember, is getting around $800 a month in monthlies, which is not great, but it's
not
a lot
bad.
better than nothing. No, not bad. So what else do we need to talk about?
Well, I guess, can we talk a little bit more about what it is we're going to do in our working group meetings before the next month? So we're going to get together, see which piece everyone wants to do, and I guess just start trying to put together a plan. How much action, or maybe we should just check back in with one another in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
right?
I think we
had
should have a
talked about
check-in, 2 weeks or something like that. That's a good idea.
So my plan is to take the list when Ting emails us tomorrow morning and reach out to everybody in the research group and ask them what they think the research group should research. And then Naomi, I'm sure you've got the biggest group, it sounds like. A lot of people were excited about, that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of, requests for information, things like that. And if you send them to me, I'll see what I can do about, getting those things together too.
Cool.
Stephen, I don't know if this comes in under research, but one thing I thought of is we've got to reach out to all the NYPAN chapters and find out what districts they're in, who they cover, so we can figure out where we have gaps, because those gaps might be places where we can build new chapters.
Okay. All right. I think Carrie probably has, or George probably have the best grasp of who's where.
Yeah, I just thought
I'll try to work with Carrie on that.
Okay. Otherwise, we can just email the heads of all the chapters and say, just let us know.
Yeah, that would be fine.
But we should build some kind of a spreadsheet so we can quickly look at it and say, so-and-so, he's in Carrie's district.
There was a woman on the call tonight, Maria Quackenbush is her name. Part of our Hudson Valley Demands New York Health Coalition. She's a leader in a group called Dutchess County Progressive Action Network, which actually used to be part of NYPAN. They left a while ago. But they do a lot of work on the New York Health Act, and to my knowledge, there's no NYPAN group in her area. So she could be I don't know if they're interested in rejoining NYPAN, but she could be their de facto, our de facto chapter in that area around Poughkeepsie, basically.
Well, this raises a great idea. Maybe we should have people who are non-NYPAN people that cover particular areas we need to cover.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. There's no reason to force somebody to be a chapter to do New York Health Act work.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would we call it? So when we refer to chapters, well, we'll have to think of some other word for these folks, but
Coalition partners would be fine. Chapters, coalition partners, something like that.
Yep.
Or just partners.
We didn't, I guess, identify anybody to work on future meetings and rope people in for speakers and so forth. So I guess we have to do that. And are we going to do that for the August meeting?
I think we are that working group.
Yeah.
Looks like Emily's joined that
I'm
group
meeting
too.
with somebody from, oh yeah, Emily, maybe you want to. Well, I'm meeting with Madeline Knightley from Economic Security Project on Friday, and I can ask her about speaking. And then maybe in the September meeting, just because like they do a lot of legislative strategy, like mostly federal, but yeah. Or they have like a state policy team too. Maybe those people are better. Like they have meeting with legislators. It's kind of amazing, like watching the professionals do it. So I think she'd be a good person to talk to. But I can think maybe that would be better for the September one, so we can like figure out who, like whether it's Madeline or some other team member at Economic Security Project and stuff. And then maybe we should reach out to like Jabari for August.
One thing I feel is a sort of a push-pull between having a speaker that's really strong and motivating and stuff, but also not wanting to eat up too much of our time.
Well, we'll keep everyone to strict limits. You know,
Right.
just tell them how much.
The other thing that was part of it would be getting somebody like Jabari. What's the angle that how are we asking him to support us, or figuring out how we support him, or
I think one thing it would be really helpful to get from Jabari actually is insight, in like less you know what can you do for us, but like, okay, you've been on the inside, and he really has been on the inside of these conversations, and really the person driving it in the Senate. So to get some, I think, I don't know if you guys have like attended any of those DSA debriefing sessions that he's been speaking at. Like those have been really valuable for me in terms of understanding the power dynamics and the way these chambers work.
Yeah, they've been great. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think getting him to talk about that would be super helpful.
okay. So can you reach out to him, or who knows him, or how do we do that?
I mean, I'm not close to him, but I know him enough to reach out to him. So,
Okay,
so we're thinking for August, right?
I ghost wrote his turtle speech. I have a connection.
Wow.
It's great.
That was actually the most fun I had in activism in a year and a half.
And we're thinking of him for August 2nd?
I think so, yeah.
Do we want him for August or for September after, like, because August nobody's going to be around, we were talking about.
It is going to be.
Should we just not have anyone for August?
I'm okay with not having anybody, because I think it gives us a chance to kind of get our feet on the ground with how we do the report backs and how we then discuss those reports and so forth.
Yeah.
Which may be a little difficult at first,
That's true.
because there'll be some pride of ownership and some people's hurt feelings probably, and I don't know what there'll be.
Yeah, and I
Maybe-
think
Yeah, so I can talk, when I talk to Madeline, I'll do it for October.
Cool.
I'm happy to ask Anna Kellis. I bet she'd be interested to be involved.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe for November.
Well, let's hold off, because we can just see, like, after we talk to the other two, what it is that we will need for the next one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We'll put out
And
the
then
feeler though.
we'll send you out. Mm.
And I think at some point, well, I'm, for instance, in the electoral group, I want to talk with some people, but I'm not sure whether I want to talk to them in the working group or in the whole committee. Because it may be using too much committee time to.
Maybe the best thing is to reach out to them outside the committee meetings, outside.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Like I plan to do that at least to get the first meeting started.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Like who? Like who are you thinking?
So basically, like, I mean, we're a research group, and I want to reach out to each person and find out what they're interested in researching, what makes them excited. Hopefully I've got a few people to call, but we'll see. And just get them involved and get them, get them excited about doing what they want to do.
I think that's really.
Yeah, I think
it helps.
I think it's a really smart idea, that person to person. I think is really important for onboarding people. Naomi, I know you did that with the healthcare committee and with grassroots action, and I think it's really effective.
Yeah.
Talking with
That was
individuals.
Katie Robbins' advice to me.
It was good advice.
Get her to talk.
Mm-hmm.
She's out. Katie's gone. She's like, I think she talks to Yuling and Ursula sometimes, but I think as far as the campaign is concerned, she's out.
So I've been making notes toward the bottom of the planning document. If everybody can take a look when you get a chance. Oh, wait. Naomi, who's it you're reaching out to?
Madeline Knightley at the Economic Security Project. They're lobbyists.
That's for the
Progressive
October.
lobbyists. Yep, October.
Okay. And I'm going to email all the NYPAN chapters and find out who they cover and build a spreadsheet that we can start working with.
Great. Well, I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah, we seem to be giving ourselves a lot of work.
Yeah, we do.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
Now, I noticed, by the way, in the chat, Kimberly said she wanted a list of NYPAN chapters forever. Do you know, Stephen, what she wants that for?
Wait, what does she want?
She wants a list of NYPAN chapters, which is on our website, by the way.
Yeah, just refer to that.
Yeah. Well, I just noticing it just now. It's in the chat. So she's not here anymore.
Kimberly's plays whatever she's thinking close to the vest.
Okay. Well, if you talk to her, just mention it's on our website. So.
Okay.
Now there's two versions. There's sort of the pictorial version that has more information. Then there's a link to a list, a printable list.
Okay.
That's probably what she wants.
Okay. Can you send me the link to the chat? I didn't save it.
I'll send you the chat itself, the file. I can't send you a link.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Is our work here done?
I think so.
Oh, I've been recording this whole thing, unfortunately.
Good job, everyone.